Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And throughout most of this week, in honor of April Fools, I am doing trivia reviews for spoof comedies. And today I'm doing the 1991 film, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. Here's your trivia question for today. At the Blue Note, Jane and Frank ask the pianist to play their song. What song does he play? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, we start off with a bomb being placed in a building that unfortunately blows up, attempting to try and kill Dr. Meinheimer. The reason for this is because he is going to have a meeting with the government very soon, trying to convince them to switch over to clean energy. Luckily, he survives, and now Frank Drebin and the police squad are on the case to figure out who tried to do this. Since the events of the first film, Frank and Jane have unfortunately split up, but they're being thrust back together due to the fact that she is actually the assistant of Dr. Meinheimer. Jane has apparently also moved on from Frank, as she is now dating a man named Quentin Hapsburg. And as we, the audience, soon discover, Hapsburg is the true villain of this story. He has been working alongside members of big corporations representing gas, coal, and of course, nuclear power in the hopes of being able to stop Dr. Meinheimer. And since they were unable to take him out, they try a new plan of replacing him. So will Frank Drebin, along with the police squad, be able to stop Quentin Hapsburg and his evil associates? So this movie, just like the previous film, was directed by David Zucker. It was also written by Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, Jerry Zucker, and Pat Proft. Now, this film is a continuation from the first one, but it does still spoof some other movies within it. Here are some of the ones that I was able to notice: Ghost from 1990, Goldfinger from 1964, RoboCop from 1987, and even the television series The Twilight Zone from 1962. Now, all of the primary cast did come back for this one, including Leslie Nielsen, George Kennedy, O.J. Simpson, and Priscilla Presley, who, by the way, for this film dyed her hair red. I'm not sure if this was just a choice for this film or because of another movie she was working on, but it's interesting because in the three movies, she goes from blonde to red to back to blonde. The main villain for this film, Quentin Hapsburg, is played by Robert Goulet. Now, what's interesting though is he did actually make an appearance on the Police Squad television series as himself. Another new addition to this film was Richard Griffiths as the two characters of Dr. Meinheimer and Earl Hacker. Here's a cameo you may not have realized, but the guy who's holding up the police station is actually Weird Al Yankovic. He appears in all three of the Naked Gun films, this time technically not as himself. You also have Zsa Zsa Gabor, who is making fun of herself and her run-in with the cops. You also have Mel Torme, who might be playing himself or just a guy who's there to dance. And finally, making a brief cameo, a couple members of the Chicago Bears. At the Blue Note Bar, there are a bunch of pictures up on the walls. Each one of them is supposed to represent a failure in history. And here are what all the pictures are of: the Hindenburg, the RMS Lusitania sinking, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the Ford Edsel, the DeLorean DMC-12, the Hubble Space Telescope, Neville Chamberlain, and Michael Dukakis. Just like the previous movie, this was filmed entirely in California. So when it comes to the film The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, I do enjoy this one and I do find it very funny, but I also think this has the same issue that I had with Airplane 2, the sequel, where there isn't much that changed in the sequel from the first film, and honestly it's just kind of the same jokes redone almost. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, if you enjoyed this one, I'm going to give the same recommendations that I did for the first film: National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, Johnny English, Top Secret, and Hot Shots. Now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. At the Blue Note, Jane and Frank ask the pianist to play their song. What song does he play? So, in a sequence that was probably going to seem very romantic or very serious, instead, the pianist ends up playing the song Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. This sequence made me laugh so hard just because that song was so out of nowhere. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if there's any other spoof comedies you think should get a trivia review, mention them in the comments. They may either show up this week or they might come up next year when I do this again.